Hello and welcome back to my channel, Rise Up Diabetic Health. My name is Alyssa. I have been type 1 diabetic for over 9 years. I created this channel because I'm passionate about helping others improve their life living with diabetes, so I hope you follow along. So today we are going to do a question and answer. So I posted a question box on my Instagram, Rise Up Diabetic Health. If you don't follow, you definitely should, because I post lots of informational reels, posts about fitness, nutrition, everyday life, living with diabetes. So I'm going to answer some of the questions that was asked in the question box. All right, so getting into the first question here, we're starting off with my diagnosis story. So what age was I when I got diagnosed and how did I find out? So I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 21 years old. So I was in college, very healthy, very active. I played golf in college, and it was literally just a couple months before my golf season had started in the spring that I started to feel a lot of weird symptoms. So I was really tired. I just remember going to class and then coming back at like 10 a.m. and napping for 3 hours. Very thirsty, so I drank a ton of water. Going to the bathroom a lot. I couldn't even make it through a night without going to the bathroom at least 3 times. And then what kind of finally was what got me to go to the doctor to figure out what was wrong with me was my vision started to go really blurry. So I just remember putting on my glasses and thinking that would help, and it didn't. So then finally my mom was like, I think you need to go to the doctor. I think we need to see what's wrong with you. And I did. So that next day I went to the doctor. Funny thing is that I ate a Pop-Tart right before I went to the doctor appointment. So that shot up my blood sugar insanely. So when I went to the doctor, they told me that my blood sugar was sitting at 750, which is insane to me to think about at this point. But yeah, he basically just told me that I am type 1 diabetic and that I need to go to the emergency room right now because my numbers are indicative of someone who should probably be in a coma. So I went to the emergency room. My friends came and visited me. My parents drove down from my hometown, which was a couple hours away, to take care of me. It was definitely a huge surprise and something that I never would have expected to happen to me. And at the time, I really knew nothing about type 1 diabetes. So it was a huge learning experience. And especially someone at 21 when you're in college, it's a big adjustment. All right, so next question is, do I follow any specific diet to help manage my blood sugars? I think this is a really great question because there is so much information out there about keto diets or eating high carb, low fat. There's all kinds of information of what you should do if you have diabetes. And in the last 9 years that I have been diabetic, I will say I haven't really done any extreme diets by any means, but I definitely went through a period of my life where I ate really clean and I barely had anything that was fast food, full of sugar. That was just considered off limits to me. And then I've also had periods in my life where I was a little more enjoying of those things and had them probably a little bit too much. But I definitely don't follow any specific diet. I don't have any diet restrictions that I put on myself, but I will say that I do really try to focus on eating whole foods, getting in fruits, vegetables, staying closer to whole grains and foods that are more low glycemic, because I've just found for myself that those help me kind of maintain a more stable blood sugar, whereas when you eat those foods that are more high glycemic, you can really spike easier. So I'm not saying that I don't have those things, because I definitely am someone who enjoys pizza. Ice cream is probably one of my favorite foods, but there is a time and place for it, and I do kind of follow that 80-20 rule, where 80% of the food that I consume is going to be more nutrient dense, and then the other 20% I'm going to let myself have the things that I really enjoy, because at the end of the day, if your diet isn't sustainable and something that you can maintain over a long period of time, it's not going to be realistic for you to do that in order to maintain blood sugars. All right, next question. What is my favorite low blood sugar snack? Funny story to start. I remember when I got diagnosed, my mom bought me a huge bag of Snickers. And she's like, okay, this is gonna be your snack that you have when you have a low blood sugar. And I just remember it being the worst idea on the planet because I would constantly make myself go low just so I could eat the Snickers. Because at that time I was kind of told, like, you know, you can't really eat these things anymore. I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to take an extra unit of insulin just so I can eat the Snickers. So quickly learned that that was not a good idea. I've never been one to have like glucose tabs or glucose gel or anything like that. Not really a fan of that, but I will say now I like to have dates on hand. I love fruit strips. Applesauce pouches have been like really convenient for me. And I do find that when you have more of a set designated low blood sugar snack, it's more helpful in managing your blood sugars. Because I used to, you know, when I had a low blood sugar, I'd be like, okay, this is my opportunity to go into the fridge and pick out something that I really wanted to have. And I just found that it was just a lot more difficult for me to, one, control the amount that I was eating, because I would just kind of raid my fridge, especially when you have a low blood sugar. You're just not thinking straight, so it's easier to kind of like grab a bunch of things out of the fridge, and then before you know it, you're, you know, going extremely high from all the food that you just ate. So one thing that I would say is, you know, pick a couple different low blood sugar snacks and stick with it, because that's what's gonna kind of prevent you from eating the whole fridge, which is something that I used to do a lot. Okay, so the next question is, what do you do when you just don't feel like dealing with diabetes anymore? And this is a really good question because diabetes burnout is 100% real. It can feel so exhausting to have to constantly think about these daily decisions that we have to make all the time with insulin, activity, nutrition, all of those things. So I think something that has really helped me, especially on those days where it just feels like my blood sugar just wants to stay high and it just won't come down, I just like to think about moving my body in any way possible. So I think in the past I used to be like, oh, when my blood sugar's high, like I definitely need to do a really hard workout and this is gonna help. This is gonna make my blood sugar come back down. Everything's gonna be good. And I've learned over time that that is kind of counterproductive, because when your blood sugars are high and you're working out and doing strength training, it can actually be very damaging to your body. So something that I always like to do if I notice that my blood sugars are just being high, I'm feeling tired, is I just like to do something for myself. Like go for a walk, get in a stretch, anything that kind of involves that like light movement and moving your body is gonna help. Okay, so next question is, what do you like about using the Omnipod insulin pump? So I just started using a insulin pump only 4 months ago. So first 9 years of my life living with diabetes, I did insulin injections. So it was definitely a big transition for me, but I will say that there's a couple things that I really enjoy about using an insulin pump, and it's the fact that, one, I can change my basal rates throughout the day. So this is something that has been my struggle for the last few years, where I have a lot of insulin resistance in the morning with increased levels of cortisol, and I need that little bit of extra basal in the morning to kind of help fight that off, and then the rest of the day I tend to kind of need a little bit less. So the fact that I can adjust the levels of my basal throughout the day is super helpful and has truly helped me manage my morning blood sugars a ton better. All right, and the second thing I really enjoy about using an insulin pump is that the insulin amount that you give yourself can be like so precise and so exact. So when you're using an insulin pen, it can be so rigid where you have to choose between 1 or 2 units. And with the insulin pump, you know, whatever amount of carbs that you put in it, it's going to use your, you know, insulin to carb ratios, your current blood sugar, and it might give you, you know, 1.25 or 1.27 units of insulin, which can really just help dial in on that preciseness of the insulin that you're getting. Okay, next question. Have you ever struggled with not wanting to wear your diabetes devices in public? So this is the exact reason why it took me literally 7 years to put on a glucose sensor and 9 years to put on an insulin pump, was the fact that I did not want to wear anything on my body. I did not want to deal with something bulky. I was worried that I was going to knock it off. I didn't want people to come up to me and be like, what's that on your body? I thought it would make me feel less beautiful, just make me feel like I'm not like everybody else. And it's taken me a long time, 7 years to be exact, to feel comfortable wearing things on my body. But now it's just something that just feels so natural to me, and I truly enjoy having people come up to me and ask me more about it. I'm very proud to wear my diabetes devices out now. All right, next question is, I struggle with rage bolusing. Any advice? So this is something that is super common, and I think all diabetics deal with at some point in their life. And just for context, rage bolusing just refers to when your blood sugar is kind of sitting high and you already have insulin on board, but then you decide to take more because it just doesn't feel like it's dropping. And then usually that can result in a dramatic drop in your blood sugar. So something that we don't want to deal with, because one, the feelings of it dropping really quickly is not fun. It does not feel good. And we all, obviously do not want to experience lows if we don't have to. So some things that I have learned through experience is, one, you have to have patience, and just the more you understand your body and the context of the situation that you are in, because every situation is going to be different. So you kind of have to learn your body's patterns and get more comfortable with knowing what activity does, or what certain foods that you eat that are high in fat tend to do to your blood sugars and all of that stuff. And the more comfortable and knowledgeable you are about the way your body responds to these variables, the better you can kind of assess the situation. Okay, next question. I'm starting to work out, but my blood sugars are all over the place before, during, and after my workout. Any help would be appreciated. Okay, so this one is really tricky, because first you need to understand what different types of movement and exercise can do to your blood sugars. So in general, steady state exercise, which is typically walks, light runs, bike rides, anything like that, is going to, over a period of time, lower your blood sugar. Strength training can tend to make your blood sugar go high, and then HIIT can tend to increase your blood sugar, but then maybe drop a little bit later. And that is just recommendation. So it's not necessarily what's going to happen every time. And obviously there's many other variables that can go into it. But I think the most important thing that you can do is just get more familiar with your patterns when you do certain types of workouts. So journaling, taking note of your blood sugar before you do a workout, take note of what type of workout that was, note your blood sugar after the workout. So do that for a couple weeks, see if you notice any patterns of if your blood sugar drops or goes higher, depending on the workouts, and that can kind of help you understand what those types of exercise are doing. And another thing that I've found for myself is the more consistent I am with my routine, the better I am able to kind of predict what my blood sugars are going to be after different types of exercise. Final question here. What is your biggest piece of advice to make living with diabetes easier? So this one is a really good question, because there's a lot of things that I could think of, but I would say the number one thing is having compassion for yourself and knowing that your numbers are never going to be perfect. This is something that, until we find a cure for type 1 diabetes, you have to figure out how to manage and make the best out of it. And I used to spend a lot of time getting frustrated when my blood sugars were high. I would get mad, I'd get angry, and what I found is that just ended up snowballing and making things even worse. So I think it's good to obviously have a little bit of like frustration when you see a high blood sugar, because that means that you care and you want to understand what's going on. All right, so that is going to wrap up the video for today. Comment down below any questions you have. I will definitely be doing a part 2 and answering more questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the videos that I will be posting. Thank you so much for watching.